Hey guys, it's John, and welcome back to The Letter. We're back in the classroom. The tremors continue long after the last of my classes have ended. Although none of my students have commented on it, I've caught a few sharing anxious glances every time a pen slips from my hand or my shoulders tense whenever called. Okay. How unusual it must be for them to see the normally composed Miss Gales become a bundle of nerves. Even the most boisterous ones have given me less grief today. You'd think being on my fourth cup of tea would provide any sort of comfort. That looks like... Okay, it's not weed. It's obviously a little embellishment vegetable that I can't think of at the moment. Chives, no. Whatever. Parsley, eh. Or is this the fifth? Egad, why does counting matter now? The fact that I can't easily shake it off this time should tell me something. The last time this happened, I passed it off as some lapse in my part after having been sick the week before.
And it is a natural conclusion.
Those are just stories. A centuries-old lore passed by the locals to keep children in line. What place doesn't have those? One of my Dawes books even went so far as to describe them as a strong part of Isabella's culture. Tree giants, women who feed on unborn children straight from a mother's womb, or hell, there's even that one story about a demon baby. Demon baby. All folklore that never had a smidgen of truth in it, most probably told to scare off the natives there back in the old days. Much like every other one in every other place. The world is more universal than people care to think. But looking at it from where I'm standing now, after staring right into the eyes of that woman, after all the things I've been hearing and feeling, perhaps there's really more to that bloody letter than some awful Halloween prank.
Perhaps Isabella's right all along.
A terrible thing, if true. Though that thought doesn't linger long, thankfully. Soon, the ringing of my mobile takes my attention away from it. An unfamiliar name flashes before me once the screen lights up and my brows knit together. Marianne McCulloch. Staring hard at the screen, I try to remember when I've entered this person on my contact list. It takes a moment, but when it clicks, my eyes zeroes in on the book lying wide open on my table. Loaned out from the library almost a week ago. I met that woman there by sheer coincidence, a fellow history buff apparently. We were after the same book, but in the end she's given it to me under the condition that I call her once I'm done. To be honest, I've completely forgotten about it until now, and, well, I haven't really taken a peek at it until today. Normally I'd be done with the whole volume of this size a few days after taking it out, about one or two depending on how busy I am, but finding a chance to sit down and read through it has become more difficult lately than I had anticipated. One moment I'm busy simply grading worksheets, attending a movie premiere the next, then someone's suddenly inviting me out for one reason or another. Days later, a friend stops showing up at her flat, right after worrying reports pop up in the local news. There simply isn't enough time to breathe and get a grip on things. I have been flipping through the pages of the said book moments ago, though never really reading anything and merely hoping for a distraction. To no avail. My phone gives out another ring, and this time I do not hesitate to answer.
Marianne?
Hello. Here I was starting to wonder if it was a bad time to call. Is it?
No, not at all.
I mean, I'm at work right now.
I dismissed my last class a few minutes ago.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty much free for the rest of the afternoon, unless something comes up. Is this about last time? The book?
Not really. I was hoping to ask you about some other thing.
Oh, sure. What about?
You grew up in this city, didn't you?
It's a peculiar question to ask to someone you've just met, but I answer her nevertheless. I'm more curious where she's heading with this by starting with that.
Born and raised, third-generation migrant. Why do you ask?
So, you must be familiar with the local lore. The, stories?
Quite. If I'm going to teach about history, I'd like to think I am, yeah? But a family friend would be a better person to ask. If you want, I can contact him for you.
No. Let's just keep this thing between us, okay? It's nothing too big. Alright. I really don't know how else to put this without sounding a bit crazy. But things have been really, odd. Do you remember the mansion I mentioned back when we met? My current project?
In hindsight, I should have expected it'll lead to this. She must not have lived here long if she's just asking about this now. It didn't take a week with Isabella when she arrived, but that's Isabella, superstitious down to the last hair, though it won't be too far off to think Marianne has only started thinking about this recently. She's working on the damn house itself. I must admit, even I'm curious now, despite living here for so many years and having so many chances to look it up before.
The Ermengarde Mansion, yes?
Yes, that one. And, the thing is... Oh dear, this is a bad idea. You know what? Just forget I ever called you about this.
No. This isn't voice acted. It must have been the sunny weather. It's making me sick and see stupid things. I don't know. See things.
No, wait. It's all right. I don't mind.
There's a moment's pause before she responds again. She's right in that this is a silly thing to talk about, especially between what I assume two people who are pretty grounded on their beliefs with regards to these things. I won't blame her if she hesitates.
I can't believe I'm asking you about this.
It's fine. Why don't you just think of it as some form of research?
Well, all right. But after this, we're going to forget we ever had this talk.
My lips will be sealed. Now, what is it about the mansion?
Just, what do you know about it? The general gist. The place's past. What happened to the owners? Anything you can give me.
Let's see. To start off,
I do my best to give her a concise summary, from the time the house was commissioned 400 years ago and who had it built, up to the point it got deserted after the last heir's death and the deed was passed on to the Ermengarde's nearest relatives. Frankly, if it weren't for those urban legends persisting, the house would have already faded into obscurity long ago. Demolished, even. These are all nothing she probably hasn't heard of before, yet there's dissatisfaction in her tone once I finished.
That's all there really is to it?
as far as I know. There's this little bit I forgot to mention about Lady Charlotte Ermengarde's death, but most of those are just theories.
Man, finally, we're like 20 hours into the game, we're finally getting some info. God.
Aside from that, this is really
No!
everything we've been teaching all these years.
No, I want to hear about Lady Charlotte Ermengarde's death. Finally something interesting, please.
Should there be anything more?
Come on.
No mention of any other weird stuff? Other crazy stories? Or a letter of some sort?
My blood runs cold. Any warmth and comfort the tea I've drank has given me prior has instantly been drained out of me. I would appreciate if they would change the music during moments like these, but whatever. The phone creaks softly as my light hold on it turns into a firm grip. This whole letter bullshit is starting to turn into more than a coincidence.
None that I've heard or read of. What does a letter have to do with this?
Oh, no. It was just something I came across. Ignore it. Random thoughts, you know? By the way, I need to run. Thanks for answering my questions.
She ends the call abruptly with only a clipped goodbye, leaving my mind heavy with even more thoughts. The mood around my classroom has gotten considerably denser in light of what little I've gleaned from that conversation. That's just... Where is it? Okay, yeah, Marianne called me. Gotta stay on top of it, otherwise they pile up. I don't think Marianne's lying about her intent. Her interest is genuine, I'll give her that, but she's left a lot of things out. I get the sense she only asked because something's happening around her, too. And if she hadn't mentioned the letter, I probably wouldn't have made the connection.
Just what the hell did we get ourselves into?
Of course, there's still a lot of confusing details in this. All of these are just assumptions. No concrete conclusion to be formed with what we have, and if we want to find out what we're really dealing with, I think Marianne's right. There might be something more to those stories. As absurd as it sounds, the very place that gave us that letter might tell us something beyond what we know. And tomorrow night, I have a few hours of that chance at the housewarming party. Totally not an exciting thought, since the place is privately owned now. I can't just wander around. But it's enough reason to keep the dread at bay as I step out of the room, ready to put an end to this day. However, all those good vibes disappear into thin air when I run headfirst into Luke. Not again. There's really something in this man. Regardless of how much my opinion of him has changed over the span of a few hours, he simply blasts through every good impression people have of him without care or thought. He doesn't even need to open his mouth. His mere presence does it. In all honesty, I think he's the kind of guy only a mother can love.
You're still here?
Obviously. Who do you think standing in front of you?
Sorry.
An ass.
Oh, come on, Daisy. You've done better than that. Losing your touch?
Come on, she just went blunt with it.
Luke, I don't have time for this. I'm heading home, and your face is the last thing I want to see before I leave. What do you want?
Belatedly, I notice his hand, partly raised, almost poised for a knock. At a slight lift of an eyebrow, he quickly drops it to his side and turns to Kylie. She's standing a few steps away from him, holding her hands behind her back and towing at something on the floor with the tip of her shoe. Then he proceeds to make vague gestures at me and the child. He resembles a fish flopping for air with the way he's moving his arms, though I think he's trying to urge her to speak up.
Munchkin, I thought you wanted to tell her something.
You do it, Tio.
This wasn't my idea, darling.
Don't worry. I won't tell Tia what you told me the other day. And this morning.
Luke exhales, rolling his eyes at the ceiling and maybe praying for the universe to grant him more patience. Serenity now! He knows a losing battle when he sees one. He may act worse than a 5-year-old throwing a tantrum at times, but he's no match for an actual child. Nothing better than being served a dose of his own medicine, huh? Once his frustration has been promptly let out, he points a rude finger at me. I do my best to stare the offending digit down, but I can already hear the demand before it's even out of his lips.
You, come with us.
What makes you think I will?
Because little Rugrat here is upset and worried, and it's your bloody fault. I've no idea what happened this morning, but if you don't come with us, I won't be hearing the end of it from her. So do me a favor, Daisy, and just be glad I'm inviting you.
You're asking for a favor, and you can't be bothered to be polite? I don't know. It's been a really busy day for me. I kind of miss my couch.
Daisy, you just say yes.
A pause follows, almost too dramatic. Afterwards, his face twists into something between a grimace and a smile. As it happens, he appears like he's in a lot of physical pain. You'd think the man is getting an aneurysm by simply being polite.
Please?
Tio said it'll be his treat.
What? I said no such thing, Munchkin. I only agreed to this because you requested it. I'm under no obligation to feed her.
I promise I'll be quiet the next time I visit.
Oh, all right, but just one meal and make it the cheapest.
He and Ashton will get along famously on that department. On a different front, the offer of free dinner does sound enticing, however half-heartedly given it is. Mostly because Kylie has wisely put on her puppy eyes, and by the second, I find all my choices slipping away from me.
See, Miss Pink? It'll be fun. You don't have to feel sad anymore, okay?
Oh, well,
My mobile buzzes from my pocket, cutting me mid-sentence, and for a second I'm spared from the act of giving an answer I'll regret either way. Fishing the gadget out, I wave a hand at him and excuse myself. A disgruntled expression is on Luke's face before I turn away. I'd be lying if I say it didn't amuse me. He's as eager to be done with this as I am, but what can I do? Checking, a message from Ashton shows up. Hey, Becca. I'll be around Salemwell this evening. Need to meet someone in the area. I might have to drop by yours and Isabella's place after. See ya. Oh. Just the usual. Unlike what he does to Zachary, Ashton has the decency to let us know when he's dropping by or he's in the area for some business. From the way it's phrased, it sounds to be the latter. Either way, I'm glad he's at least aware of that boundary. Not that Isabella's ever going to let him leave the building unscathed, but if he ever pulls the same stunt he does with the other man. If he ever pulls the same stunt he does with the other man. I cringe to imagine what she'll do to him. Sighing, I slip the gadget back to my pocket, but looking up to see Luke's utter impatience on his face, I now face a different dilemma. Why did I say similar there? Weird. I'm tired, sorry. The two of them are still waiting, and knowing the kind of person Luke is, this is already a grand gesture of goodwill coming from him. All to please his godchild. His denials aside, it's easy to tell he's really fond of Kylie from his actions alone. Kinda hate to ruin that.
Well, Daisy, we're waiting here.
On the other hand, there's Ash. His message doesn't exactly imply he's going to wait, or he's expecting me to be there, but there are matters I hope to discuss with him in person, to put it simply. Housewarming party matters. With inviting Isabella out of the question, I only have Zachary and Ashton. Although the former has already made it clear he'll be busy this week, and well, Ashton has been my first choice from the start. Even if he detests attending gatherings like this, it's company that counts. We can be miserable together. Interesting. Ashton's your first choice, but he is the person you have like the worst relationship with. But that's the problem, isn't it? He hates them, and it's very likely his answer will be a flat no. I'd rather not hear that. If by some miracle he agrees to it, he'll probably be sulking the whole party. Okay. Not really a tough choice when you put it like that. Still, tough choice, but I have to pick one. Oh. They give you so many save slots. They give you 99 save slots, I think. Crazy. All right. Okay. Wow. I don't know if I like that we're going up so high with Luke. In the end, it's my own fondness for Kylie that wins out. I just figured this will be more interesting than going home. And going back to our room being like, I miss my parents again. Chances are I'll only have to endure his presence for an hour or so. If it lasts more than that, I can make up an excuse. A sudden call from a friend or things to work on. It doesn't seem so bad when I think of the pros and cons. At best it'll be a quiet dinner. At worst it'll be an awkward affair we're both eager to get rid of. I'm leaning more on the latter happening, hoping for the former, of course.
Okay, but only because Kylie asked.
Kylie's face instantly lights up. For the third time today, she tackles me into a hug before pulling away and dragging me by the hand towards the building exit.
That's all right. I'm sure Tio doesn't mind. He let me pick where we're going to eat. Don't worry, it's just close.
Luke follows closely behind, and perhaps out of some desire to keep the dead air away, I can't resist throwing in a quip.
Keep your distance. You better not do anything funny, you hear?
What's he gonna do?
I'm the one who should keep my distance.
His niece is there, and he does have a point here. You're the one who bopped him on the back of the head with a book and kicked him in the balls.
May I remind you who approached me first and what you did right after?
Oh, I remember it clearly. But perhaps it's you who needs a reminder. You seem to have never learned your lesson. Care we give it another try? Maybe this time it'll stick.
Maybe this time it'll stick. You think you're scary? I'll show you what's scary.
To my surprise, his tone lacks the usual sardonic note in it, and briefly I pause to stare at him. He quickly shuts his mouth right after and walks ahead of us. I'll show you what's scary. That sounds like a threat. All talk and no trousers like the usual. All talk and no trousers. I can't say I've ever heard that expression. Okay, and for the better part of our walk, except for Kylie's excited chatter, we don't speak. Somehow I have this strange feeling I'm already getting used to this kind of banter with him. I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing. And amidst this newfound friendship, dare I call it that? Ashton's message lays forgotten and abandoned in my pocket. Good! Bye-bye, Ashton. You freaking narcissist. Okay, achievement unlocked. Dinner date. Oh, great. Of all the places nearest to the school, Kylie picks this one and waiting for food to be served is as awkward as I've imagined it would be. Not the bad sort, though. The pleasant kind. Surprisingly, Luke's an okay bloke when he tries. So long as you're willing to look past the tactless remarks where we're not exchanging acerbic quips. It's clear he's making an effort for this to be as fun as possible for the 6-year-old by being chattier, even going as far as to laugh when Kylie's story calls for it. It's an interesting thing to hear from the man. More than once I catch his frequent cheesed-off expression easing whenever he looks at the girl.
And your friend? Did you make up with her?
Yep. She said she just saw something she didn't like. She didn't accept the jellies, though. She told me to give it to you instead. She knows you like the red ones, too.
Very well. Hand it to me later. I'll bring some of them home. I think your Tia would love to have some.
What a terrible liar. He says he dislikes the idea of having children of his own, relationship status updated, but it's easy to see some part of him genuinely wants them. Relationship status updated? What got updated? What's new? I don't see. Did something get updated somewhere else? Am I going nuts? I thought it said a relationship status updated. Did it say story update? Oh, that was a story up. Is that what it said? Okay, I don't know. What's stopping him? Once Kylie wanders to the nearby bookshelves, after having lost interest in the conversation, however, we both revert back to silence. On our own, we have little to talk about, aside from a few questions about the other here and there. At one point, it does veer on local politics and history. He's surprisingly versed with it that he can hold a decent conversation without throwing a jibe. Nothing too personal is ever mentioned so far, though. It's too early for those, and besides, I don't like him enough to speak of every minute detail of my life. Better keep it strictly between the silence and the casual repartee. This whole thing already looks and feels wrong on so many levels. I'm quite sure he feels the same. So when another bout of silence hits us and becomes too much, I've taken to finding something else to occupy myself. Toying with my mobile, turning it from hand to hand, while we wait for our respective meals. But it'll be a complete lie if I say I'm not waiting for some intervention. Something to pull me away from this place. Someone. Ashton's probably at Salemo by this time, working on whatever business he has there. Maybe if I make up an excuse and leave now, I can still catch him.
Cut that out, it's distracting.
My hand stills, holding the gadget awkwardly between us, arrested mid-pass by his bored tone. He's been quiet for a long minute now, after complaining about how appalling the tea they're serving here is. Before that, he has whined about how uncomfortable his chair is and tasteless the decorations they have here. Previous to that, he has griped about how dull the place is, compared to the one he frequents on the upper class side of the city. Well, I'm sorry for being a bunch of peasants, your majesty. Figures he'll lose his patience soon, having already grumbled about almost everything his eyes can reach. It's just unfortunate he's turned to me now.
Why don't you just look somewhere else?
I can't. If I turn elsewhere, I might end up looking at the bobfuck right behind us.
Did he turn green just now?
Bobfoot.
Sorry.
Do I even want to ask?
Sorry, I don't mean to be looking at my phone during the playthrough. That's unprofessional. I don't want to hear it. If it's coming out of his mouth, it can only be either rude or offensive. Regardless, he continues.
Everything looks good. But have you seen the face? True horror.
What is wrong with you? You know, I frown about this in practice, but that mouth needs to be washed out with a particularly potent soap. Preferably by your own mum.
A shame she isn't here,
For whatever reason, that puts an end to that talk right away. He returns to watching his godchild, who has found a particularly interesting picture book and is now poring over it while I turn back to my mobile. Still no message. Would it kill him to at least send a message? Check if I were home? Meanwhile, Luke's silence lasts all but 10 seconds.
What is it with the damn mobile? Are you on a curfew?
He's got the immature act down pat, I'll give him that. Seriously, how old is this guy? Has he somehow been deprived of affection during childhood?
And what is it to you? I don't think it's any of your business what I do with it.
It is my business, all right? 1, I'm the one paying here. 2, I'm being forced to eat dinner in a place this stuffed and noisy. Lastly, it's been 10 minutes, the food isn't here, and I'm hungry. What you're doing with the mobile is annoying and distracting, when the least you could do is keep things entertaining while I suffer.
It's her responsibility to entertain you, is it?
That's your problem? Shouldn't you be more worried about how this entire affair looks to other people?
Oh, I didn't realize this was one. You move fast, Daisy. You could have informed me first, you know. Had I known, I would have taken you someplace nicer. Certainly the kind with better food and plenty of good wine.
Why did I ever think this was a good idea? Did it ever occur to you how inappropriate this might look to everyone?
Why should I care? It's only inappropriate if you make it out to be. Relax. I won't do anything to make your boyfriend angry. He doesn't even need to know we dined out. It'll be our dirty little secret.
He's not my boyfriend!
The words come out with more force than I've intended. By the time I realize my slip-up, his lips are already spread into a sneer. Heat slowly crawls up in my face.
Oh, so there is someone. You're so easy to read.
Briefly, his eyes search my face. I have no idea what he sees, nor do I care to know, but the next second he barks out a laugh displaying his amusement without reserve to everyone within earshot. In that moment, I know I've flipped a switch in him somewhere and I've lost my chance to deny his assumptions. Do I even want to? Isn't that the reason why I've been so focused on my mobile, waiting for another message from him? For a reason to dump this awkward meeting to go after him?
Look how mottled you are. Now the nickname makes more sense. Shy Miss Pink and her cute little crush. The color suits you, by the way. It matches the hair.
It's not a crush.
Classic denial. But in reality, you want him to be yours, and your every move is made to make him notice you. In fact, you don't want him to see you with another man in a non-professional capacity, because he might misinterpret it.
The same thing goes for you, doesn't it? Bloody, yours is even worse. What about your wife? Aren't you concerned she might misinterpret this?
I love Rebecca's little like, oh, you just make me so mad. I love it. It's funny.
Daisy, just because we tied the knot doesn't mean we have to be joined at the hip at every single opportunity.
Don't be ridiculous. Why else would you marry her if you don't want to be with her for the rest of your lives?
Because, Daisy, she also has other things she can do with her life and friends to spend time with. Granted, I don't like some of them, and I have a few of my own she utterly dislikes. But wifey doesn't have to know my every move. Nor do I hers. Do you know how boring that would be? To be with the same person for all hours of the day, losing sleep over the mere fact they're not with you? Or putting everything you have aside to please them, to have your whole world revolve around one person?
Aren't you just mistaking that for something else? Unlike you, there are other people here who don't share the same jaded outlook you have. Don't lump everyone together just because it didn't work out for you.
Okay, I mean, I think there's something to be said about independence in a relationship. There's something to be said for a codependence, but you also want to have time to yourselves and time to assert to yourselves and to the other one that, you know, you still retain some independence from the relationship, I think. I think that's important. So I half agree with Luke a little bit. I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily jaded. I think maybe saying that it would be boring to be around them all the time is a bit of a misinterpretation. Some people just are needier than others. And, you know, I don't know. There's something to be said about that, but I don't want to go off on a long rant. Okay.
And you, my dear, are unexpectedly naive.
What's so naive about it?
Like, obviously, don't cheat on your significant other. You know, I don't know, unless you have, like, a thing with them where it's okay to do that. If you're in a monogamous, like, you know, relationship, don't break that trust, obviously. But, you know, so I'm not on that end of things. I don't think he is either, but it's hard to tell.
If you love each other, wouldn't you want to always see them, be with them, to have them focus solely on you?
See, I disagree with that. I wholeheartedly disagree with that sentence.
Maybe you haven't been loved enough.
Wow.
It's that kind of thing for you, isn't it? The love is eternal, love is a strong emotion shite. A starry-eyed girl pining for her dashing Prince Charming.
Okay, I don't agree with this either, but...
What's next? Romantic confessions of love? A grand wedding on the beach? Dozens of spawns running around in some picturesque home in the suburbs? How quaint. Are you also expecting it's going to be sunshine and rainbows after? A happily ever after? Please.
What? I never once said... And is all of that such a bad thing to hope for?
Woman, I've been married for 7 years, and I'm telling you, it's far from what you have in your pretty red head. Tell me, how long has this song and dance been going for you and your man? Maybe I am mistaken.
Averting my eyes from him is all I managed to do. What does his mere 7 years have compared to the 17 I've had with Ash? He's been married for 7 years. You've known Ash for 17. Don't compare them. It's laughable he thinks those two things are even comparable. It's laughable you think they're comparable. Ash and I may have never moved past the boundaries of friendship like what I'm hoping for years, but what we have isn't something anyone can scoff at. Romantically, yes it is, though. I've always been by his side, endured everything with him. I know him better than anyone. This is like borderline delusional right here. No matter what this man, this complete stranger says, I know there will always be a place for me beside him. And yet...
Come on, Daisy, that shouldn't be too hard. 3, 5, 8, 10, 20.
His words easily seep into my heart like sharp daggers, gradually picking apart everything I've ever been sure of. Despite myself, the doubts resurface and my defense crumbles right in front of my eyes. It's no wonder he sees through me, and as expected, he ridicules it. Laughs, restrained, low and rumbling, a sharp sound striking the air around us amidst the murmur of people and the soft notes of the music playing over our heads. His shoulders shake, and when his mirth becomes too much even for him, he reaches up a hand and passes it over his face, as if to hold his glee close to him.
Bloody bullocks, this is just brilliant. Oh, mother, why do I always keep running into these things? This day couldn't get any better.
This is, rather cruel.
I think I'm gonna need a stiff drink after this.
He dissolves into another peal of laughter, but when it subsides, what he has for me are more words. Scathing, each one of them. The urge to run from here has never been this strong.
Is everything you said how you plan to act, if that man of yours ever ends up with you? Cling to him? Put him on a bloody pedestal? Let him become the center of your universe? Although with how long this seems to be going on, I think you've already done so. Marriage will just be icing on the top. Like some sort of reward for you, isn't it? For being a good, patient, loyal little girl all this time, never looking at another man.
Yeah, he really kind of gets off on bullying people, doesn't he?
He must have been having a grand time with someone pining over him this long. I'm a little envious, to be honest. Maybe also a little surprised he hasn't suffocated from all your attention yet.
Really, it's like, though... I think he's kind of exhibiting some self-loathing here. Which isn't to say that I'm pitying him in this moment. It's just, I don't know. It's hard to get an angle on this guy. It's like, the behavior's so inconsistent. Is he bipolar? I mean, I don't want to like just automatically go there, but it just seems weird. It's like they're pretty...
Laugh all about it if you want. It's not like you'll ever understand.
Pretty sharp changes, transformations in behavior. Hard to explain. Luke falls silent. The ridicule in him is gone in an instant, and his eyes meet mine, sharp and imposing. I'm not just talking about in this scene, I'm talking about in the game overall, because, you know, I was like, man, he's possessed. We did see that dark aura around him, but maybe that doesn't explain everything, you know? A challenge, but I hold it against him with the same intensity, because if there's something I won't let his opinion trample on, it's this. What does he know? However, he's the first one who looks away, focusing his eyes back to where Kylie is, and for a moment, I believe I've won. Until he draws in a breath and turns back to me. The words he drops next, though hushed, hang heavily in the distance between us.
Right. I won't. But I do know not to mistake love for obsession, woman. They are not the same thing.
It rattles. Out of everything he has said tonight, this is the one thing that twinges my heart. Maybe it's in the manner he delivers it, the lack of conceit in his posture, or an underlying insult in the tone he takes. The remark is not meant to cut, merely to express a simple truth. This time, it's him who holds gaze against mine. Another unspoken challenge, and I realize that if this happened minutes before, I already have an equally searing retort at the tip of my tongue. There's none. But the anger is there, ringing at my insides, prodding at the uncertainties I've long kept. Isn't it enough? We have the long years we've been together. We have the memories whenever he needs me until other people came in between us. Isabella, I've always been the one there. That dedication and loyalty should mean something, shouldn't it? I've always been sure of it, and that one day he'll see it for what it is. In spite of that, in this minute, under this man's scrutiny, my own heart wavers. Now I struggle to find the words. Oh boy. Okay. Alright, I think I'm gonna answer with, what right do you have? How dare he, though? Oh no, it went down. Oh no. How dare he just waltz in and act like he can do as he pleases, say what he wants, or trample over other people's feelings. He doesn't know anything about me or Ashton. We've only met a few days, and yet he acts like we've been acquainted for years. He hasn't even met Ash. How can he say those things about him? The longer I hear his tirade, the more it sounds like he's pulling it out of his arse, out of some misguided thinking he's better than anyone in this whole bloody city. What a pompous bawheed. Normally, I'll ignore people like him. He doesn't deserve a single second of my day. But a small voice at the back of my head protested the idea of simply leaving things here. I refuse to let this go until I've said my piece and defended myself. Those aren't merely months of harboring feelings for someone he's scoffing at. They're made of years, all of it built upon memories we've had from childhood.
What right do you have to tell me that?
None whatsoever, Daisy. But did you assume I haven't seen that before? Those longing looks. The face of someone who wants something but has yet to get it? Give me a little credit here, woman. I'm not daft, nor am I blind to your silly little feelings. It's plastered all over your face anyway. I didn't even need to try.
A pause comes after while I wait for him to add to that. He doesn't, but briefly, a wistful expression spreads across his face. Surprisingly gentle, as if remembering an old memory from once upon a time or something he has constantly seen in the mirror. It's gone the next second. Then he turns his attention on a box beside him. For the next few minutes, he contents himself with making a mess out of the paper napkins inside, folding them into clean shapes without any clear intent before crumpling them in his hands when he loses interest and dumping them in a small pile in front of him. I allow it to go on for a little while before I interrupt him. I am not yet done.
And somehow that's reason enough for you.
Not at all. In fact, you didn't even need to stay here and listen to me ramble about it. Go on, walk away, the door's wide open. If you wish to be done with this mindless topic. You certainly won't hear me complaining if we just drop this now. I, for one, am very eager to be done with this stupid nonsense about your man and your...
You don't know me.
He pauses in the middle of folding another paper napkin into an airplane and glances up at me.
I'm quite sure we've already established that, Daisy. But go ahead.
And you know not a single thing about him.
That too is true. Are you going anywhere with this?
We've always been together since we were children. We've been friends for a long time. We know each other better than anyone. Compared to those 7 measly years you're so proud of, we've been with each other for almost a lifetime.
This is delusional, man.
Not quite. Add a few more years, maybe? It does sound romantic when you put it that way, doesn't it? Not many people get to have someone with them that long. That's what you have going for you, isn't it? Cute years playing hide and seek, going to school together, and sharing lunch boxes? Did he also protect you from bullies? I bet my socks he did. Lucky, I don't even remember anyone from my old neighborhood. Well, except for that one Nancy who spat his drink in my face years ago. You better pray I don't find him.
So, you're just going to call it that? Despite what I told you, you're just going to call it an obsession?
I mean, it kind of is. Like, I hate to defend Luke in any way, but...
Isn't it?
Of course it isn't. Didn't I already tell you?
Did it ever cross your mind how your man would feel about all this?
You think I've never thought of that? Listen here, you.
Or were you expecting he'll simply feel the same all because of some shared history you have? Because fun fact, Daisy, feelings change and people most definitely also change with time. Whoever that person was 10 or 20 years ago, whatever idea you have of them floating inside your head, they won't be the same now.
What are you trying to get at?
Suppose that man of yours wants something else for himself. What if he never returns your feelings the way you so desperately want him to? What will you do?
That's not going to...
Are you going to beg? Tell him to choose you instead? Or are you going to lash out at the poor woman or man who happened to catch your man's attention?
My voice falters. His eyes focus on me. The pieces of paper he's been folding earlier now left forgotten in the space between us, while he waits for my response. However, I can't give him one. He's already aware of that, and it shows on his face when his lips form a lopsided smirk. How can I when I've had my suspicions all along? One that rears its ugly head every time I simply see the two of them in the same room.
Oh, I hit a nerve, didn't I?
That's none of your business.
I just want to say, if this ever happened to me and I was in Rebecca's situation, I would seriously just walk out the door. There's no need to put up with this. But maybe it's good for her to confront her delusions. I don't know.
It's true, though. The poor bloke doesn't have any obligation to return your precious feelings, nor can you force him to. That wouldn't be right.
If you're just going to mock me, we might as well sew your bloody mouth shut this instant.
Now, no need to get violent. But come on, 20 years? Gordon, Bennett, if nothing's happening past that mark, you might as well consider your options, woman. Even I wouldn't last that long.
Stop it.
One of these days, I'd like to meet the guy and share a few drinks with him, just to give the poor bloke a break from you, and probably see how dense he really is.
All right, this is getting pretty insufferable.
I mean, a lovely woman like you chasing after him, and he doesn't give a shite? That's new. It'll be on me, don't worry.
I said stop it! I don't want to hear a word of it anymore!
The chair scrapes the floor as I abruptly push away from our table and to stand. Looming over him with the most piercing glower I can summon, anger undeterred by my own ragged breathing and clenched fists. Looking down at him in the same manner he did to me throughout this chat. The only way I can keep my pride intact in front of him and the other people watching this sudden scene unfold. I hate this man. I hate the fact that he can unsettle me like this, turning everything around what I've believed in with his mere words alone. What's more awful is how easily those can replace the very ideas I hold dear to me. Not because I am easily swayed, but because in each of them I'm aware there's a sliver of truth. Minutes pass in quiet tension. Some of the diners have already lost interest in the commotion and returned to their meals. A waiter serves our food soon enough, and Kylie makes her way back to our table, unaware. But before I can take a seat, Luke mutters something. The words spoken in the same biting tone he has assumed since earlier. Despite my opinion of the man, I stop to look at him. His eyes are on his food as he speaks, busying himself with cutting a portion of meat on his plate. But what comes out of him only rings true against my ears above the din of the coffee house.
Is that all you are? Just some lovesick woman craving for another's affection? I sincerely hope not. Kylie spoke highly of you.
He spears a piece of his food, pops it into his mouth, and that's it. With that, however, he leaves another challenge in the air. Another question. One whole day with this man, and I still can't figure out what his deal is. This time, I don't rise up to it. Doing so means facing a different set of truths I'm not yet ready to face. Bitter truths. Those are for me to ponder on later, not in front of these people or him. His loathsome face and his sneer are the last things I'd ever want to see if that introspection ever happens. But for all this, I can't bring myself to think of him as someone wholly despicable. The rest of our meal slips by in silence afterwards. Aside from Kylie's occasional chatter, the whole dinner goes by without another word exchanged between the two of us. Somehow we managed to make it through the whole thing without triggering another tension-riddled conversation. A good thing, perhaps. One, because Kylie's sitting in front of us, and two, I probably won't be able to hold a proper conversation with my mind heavy with thoughts. We depart from the coffee house just as the evening crowd starts to thin out. The same wordless silence fills our short walk back to the school, except for when Luke gestures at a nearby flower shop and enters it without waiting for Kylie and I. He emerges minutes after, carrying a bouquet of daffodils, with the same softened expression back on his face. Unlike the previous ones, he tucks this one away almost as soon as he looks upon us, a moment he's not willing to share. In my confusion, he merely answers with a shrug and continues walking.
For someone important.
Better be Hannah. I accept it for what it is, if only because he doesn't owe me an explanation. It does leave more questions about him, each one as baffling as the previous ones. Those are the last words spoken this evening before we head our own ways. Up until I arrive home, I still can't understand him. Here, however, a whole different set of questions await me. And much like everything today, it comes with the littlest of things. A low note greets me upon reaching my unit's door. Its edges flutter lightly against the faint warm breeze passing through the small complex. My hand stops short of twisting the knob as I stare at it, though I don't make any moves to take it. Ashton's neat script lines its surface.
Dropped by earlier. You weren't around. Any ideas where Scaredy Cat is? I couldn't contact her. Inspector Abigail has a few questions. LPD stuff. Something about her dead co-workers.
Something about her dead coworkers.
Anyway, let me know how the two of you have been doing. I'll see you later. Ash. Pointless anime face.
The message he left short and straight to the point, but not with the underlying hint of friendship. He's looking for Isabella, apparently. Something about LPD's investigation of her coworker's death, but ends its formal tone by checking on me. Us. Any other day, the former part of his message will likely prod at the piercing envy I've been holding, while the latter will probably send my heart aflutter. Little things from him that I want to mean something more. Yet this time, only guilt fills me, and my eyes briefly shifts towards Isabella's empty unit. Luke's words repeat inside my head as I do so.
Is that all you are? Just some lovesick woman craving for another's affection? I sincerely hope not. Kylie spoke highly of you.
Let's take a look at... Okay, there we go.
Have I always been like this?
This selfish? In truth, I have intended to call Ash after that dinner. I didn't catch him here. Invite him to that party like I've planned. There's time and he's still probably feeling awake. Still probably awake at around this hour. Where'd I get the word feeling from? It's not even in this screen. Okay. But my hands won't move. And perhaps it is for the better. Until I've had the time to think this through, it'll be best if I distance myself from those I've been clinging tightly to. Find a different perspective and see things for what they are. With a soft sigh, another one, I reach for the note and crumple it under my hand. The knob twists open with much ease when I enter this time. Maybe after some introspection it'll be easier. For tomorrow I have that woman in that mansion to worry about. Okay, we're on the 28th. The night wears on without further incident, despite the great number of thoughts swimming inside my head. Interesting, that was a story update right there. There's 3 different ways that could go when we come back to the apartment. Interesting. Come morning, there's only a hush, a strange sort of stillness, unlike the ones greeting me every morn. This one's uneasy, tight with anticipation, like a string stretched thin, merely waiting for the proper time to snap. Granted, it doesn't make my day any less pleasant, but the edge is there. And as expected, the second I step out of my flat, it comes apart, broken by the voices of 2 squabbling adults, echoing from a floor below. Oh, great. The quiet was nice while it lasted. Shame.
What the hell were you thinking?
That's Ash.
I wasn't.
That's Isabella.
Ow! Could you let go?
Yeah, 2 strangers, huh? Come on. You've known this guy for 17 years and you can't identify his voice? Nah, a few seconds later, they both ascend the stairs, with Ashton pulling Isabella by her wrist. She struggles, as she should, but his hold on her remains firm. Freeing herself means having to draw blood, as she attempts to pry his hand off her with her other one, or using unnecessary force to push herself away. Doesn't sound like a good situation, gotta say. Neither of which is better than the other. One could potentially end in an accident, while the other means having to hurt him physically. She has the good sense to realize that, at least. However, it doesn't take the desperate edge in her voice when she answers Ashton's temper with her own. So on they go, none the wiser to my presence.
You have any idea how much trouble you could get in?
That's why I'm asking you for help.
Is this what you've been doing these past 3 days? Because this doesn't make your case convincing, Isabella.
Rose died, Ash.
I know. Every single person in Luxburg knows. It's on the damn news. But that doesn't mean...
People are missing. Some of those are my friends. And BRC's just covering it all up.
You can't just barge into my office and expect me to do anything about it, right off the bat.
You have an office? Okay.
This isn't a children's game, Isabella. We have procedures. We have to follow protocol. There's red tape all over this case for a reason. We sure as hell don't investigate things just because some stupid letter spooked us.
Ash, you have to believe me this time. If we don't do anything right now, more people will...
It's been a whole week. This stupid letter prank is getting old real fast. I'm sick of it. It was funny the first time, not so much now.
You're the only one that can help me with this, Ash. Even Rebecca won't.
All right, you 2 are awfully loud. What's going on here?
Both of their heads snap up, almost in unison. A displeased frown is on each of their faces, but this is necessary interruption. What can they do? People still in their units have already taken interest on the commotion, with some taking a peek behind their curtains, while others are bold enough to creak open their doors, if only slightly. If they don't keep it down, pretty soon our landlady will show up. Getting a reprimand from her is the last thing I want to happen. First thing on a Friday morning, even if this is hardly my fault.
Well, if you want to continue this, you two better do it elsewhere. You're disturbing other people.
You know, for people who are constantly getting into shouting matches with each other, they're awfully paranoid about other people yelling at them. Oh, we don't want the landlady to yell at us.
Don't worry, we're done here.
No, we aren't. Becca, I looked it up. I called them. I visited some of them, and
Which you shouldn't have done in the first place. Isabella, you're going to create more problems for us with what you're doing. A team has already been assigned to it. Leave it to us.
your precious team is looking at it the wrong way. Becca, it's not just Rose. There are others.
The last bit strikes a chord, prods strongly at a memory. At that vicious smile already etched deeply inside my mind. The image appears clear enough that, at the mere mention of it, I stumble on my own question.
What do you mean?
The letter, Rebecca! It's not...
It's nothing. If there's really something going on because of that dumb letter, none of us would be standing here. We've all read it, haven't we? But Rebecca's alive, Zach's alive, I'm alive. So for the last time, this isn't a curse.
This is something I've been wondering since chapter 1. How are all those people dead, but they're not? Because they all read the letter, but then, like, Isabella found the letter. She passed it on to 5 people. But then they didn't pass it on to 5 other people. So shouldn't they all be dead? Except for Isabella? Shouldn't she be the only one alive? I don't know.
There's a murderer on the loose, and your coworkers happen to be the victims. Give it a rest, Isabella. It's too early for this shit.
Don't you think that's too much for a coincidence?
Not so much. Most serial killers follow a pattern. I'll tell you about it some other time. And anyway, coincidence or not, the point is, civilians like you aren't supposed to get involved. You're putting yourself in danger.
I wasn't chasing after...
Will the both of you slow down and stop arguing for a minute?
You make me so mad.
I would love to see, like, steam coming out of her ears, like in cartoons. Hear, like, that train sound effect. That'd be good.
What's this about your coworkers, Belle?
Becca, please don't tell me now you believe this shit.
Maybe like a storm cloud over her head. Sure, in a heartbeat, I'll agree with Ashton. That's how it has always been, besides having a really good point. Really, they're the very same ones he'll make every time I ask too many questions. But the fact of the matter is, what he wants to hear from me right now is far from what I've been seeing, sensing these past few days. It doesn't matter what Isabella or I believe on our own. Something odd has been happening around me, and the letter she picked up is at the heart of this. However I respond to the question in their faces, only one of them will be pleased with it. I might have seen her. Well, hang on. I might have seen her? Oh, she means the ghost girl. Okay, come on. Come on. Here we go. Here we go. Finally. Let's do it. Check it out. Oh no, we went down with Ash. We only went up a little bit with Isabella. Like, verifying that she's not crazy and that we know what she's talking about, that only gives us a little sliver of relationship points. Very interesting. Ashton in particular won't be too happy to hear it. Imagining the look on his face doesn't take too much effort. His entire posture shifts the moment my reluctance shows. Shoulders tensing, brows furrowing, eyes gaining a sharp edge. He's already bracing himself for the disappointment. And it will be a disappointment. Not in a million years did I ever believe I'll be saying this either.
I might have seen her. The woman Belle's been telling us about. The one she said she saw in the attic.
Both of them stare at me like I've grown an extra head, and for a few moments, Ashton looks as if he's about to have a fit. A pause treads at its heels after a silence thick enough one can almost hear a pin drop.
You're kidding, right?
Do I look like I'm joking?
Really, Becca? Not funny.
Ash, I'm not lying. Why would I lie about this? It's been this way since the film fest. The past few days have been really odd since we read that letter.
Or maybe you're all just feeling under the weather.
I'm not sick. Don't you think I'd know that by now?
Becca, you're starting to sound like Scaredy Cat. Give me a break.
Why don't you?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, you two.
Isabella's voice cut sharply through the conversation, abruptly putting an end to the brewing argument.
It's all my fault. This is all my fault. I was only hoping I could fix this before any of you.
Yeah.
Before I...
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry for dragging you all into this.
She breathes in, deep, steadying, and in that moment, something falls behind her eyes as she looks away.
I'll fix this. I promise.
Okay, come on. A quiet resolve. The same one I saw in her that night from 3 days ago. But this time it burns brighter. Even Ashton wavers at its sight when she looks at him straight in the eyes, gaze unflinching. Gradually, his grip on her wrists loosens. What? He's been gripping her wrist this entire time? What?
Belle, there's nothing to fix. The problem is...
Just this once, Ash.
Her voice, though small and lacking any force, stops him. I hope her next words are, "Shut the fuck up." I want that to be what she says. Along with it, every sound, every noise dies around us. A hush descending as if the world is waiting for her words.
You don't have to come with me.
Oh.
But if I don't do anything, I am going to regret it.
This is when they plan to go to the mansion, right? He lays a hand... Oh, she lays a hand atop his. Gentle, pleading, almost intimate, if one does not consider the circumstances we found ourselves in.
Please.
Ashton will never tell a soul, will never admit it even to himself, but it is in that short second that his own resolve breaks. The moment the hard edge in his eyes softens and he relinquishes his hold on her, letting his hand fall limply to his side. Wordlessly, Isabella steps back and runs off, leaving only a muttered thanks and a small lackluster smile. Only after the last of her footsteps fade away does Ashton move. Oh, great. Now he's going to be like, "Great job. Thanks a lot." Breaking the silence with one of his sharp exhales, before reaching up to pinch the bridge of his nose in a gesture of frustration and surrender. Ashton's the type of guy who would write the word facepalm in a YouTube comment. He's that type of guy.
Did you really have to tell her that?
What do you want to hear from me then? That everything's fine?
No, I want all of you to stop putting these ideas in her head. None of it is helping. Never mind. Don't worry about her. I'll bring her back here.
He's already poised to leave when my own instinct takes over. I reach for him, gripping his elbow. His elbow? What's there to hold on to on someone's elbow? Their weenus? With the same unyielding grip, the action prompted by voices whispering at the back of my mind. Okay? He's already made it clear he's not going to believe me, but he deserves a word of caution. Who knows where all of this will take us, how all of this will end. He shouldn't be caught off guard, beliefs notwithstanding.
Ash, I know you don't believe in those things she's saying. And you know me. I'm less inclined to believe in those things as you do. But I've seen something. There's something strange going on here. You don't have to buy it. If you don't want to listen to me, fine. But please, try to hear her out. It's bad enough that Isabella goes off like this without telling anyone. I'm just worried something might happen to her if she keeps at it. Talk to her, okay?
As if she trusts me enough for that.
Doesn't the fact that she approached you first about this, instead of me, already say a lot?
A different kind of trust, granted implicitly and never spoken, sometimes too big, too fragile to last. He falls silent for a long moment as he turns it over in his mind. In the end, all I manages to offer is a small nod before he departs, and a promise to at least listen to her, without the teasing or the jibes. A favor for me and the least he could do for her. This is as much as I can do for him as well, until I've understood what's happening myself. Tonight, hopefully, where this all started will provide the answers I'm looking for. Okay, what the heck? Take a look at this. Gotta stay on top of it. Is that it? Okay. Yeah, so that's it for this video. How much? We've been doing these in like 1 hour installments. How are we only like halfway done? Holy shit. Oh, we're passing a lot right there. It's crazy. It's not like I'm like, let's get through this as quick as possible. It's just trying to plan out my videos before PAX and all that stuff. All right. Well, yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.